Today's show is brought to you by StreamTech Drift Boats, the world's most versatile drift boat. Find them at www.streamtechboats.com. I kind of feel bad for these people, but at the same time I don't because they're stupid.
Don't see a circle around yourself, just start pissing everywhere.
Oh, I hate the Dutch.
Welcome to our country. So
she doesn't really look Canadian. She looks almost American. Just insulted all of Canada.
Oh, every time I see something you gotta... If I'd known that before, I would have just interspaced every other sentence with something horrible.
Well, I haven't felt my feet since I sat down in the chair.
Can you see your feet, though?
No. I'd rather do anything else on the planet than go tip a cow over.
How about Canada? Is there any stream access issues up in Canada?
nobody cares.
Not very much.
Kids, if you don't understand that joke, ask your parents.
Evan, Derek?
Yeah.
Oh, God, here it comes.
Your flies are open.
Thanks.
Grab hold of your flies. This is a podcast for nymphers, strippers, swingers, and dry fly guys. It's the show that brings you stories, instruction, and conservation from three guys who live it every day. This is the Open Fly.
Happy Earth Day.
Oh.
Nothing to celebrate Earth Day like a giant diesel guzzling semi-truck outside of the studio, moving in some new neighbors, it looks like.
It's not my birthday.
Oh, what? What?
Oh, Earth Day.
Not
Yeah.
Earth Day.
Oh, right.
No, Kirk Day.
Perth Day.
Right.
Kirk
So,
Perth.
looks like I got some new neighbors.
At least it's sustainable. I mean, they are buying a house that was already there.
It is.
True.
It's kind of Earth Day-ish.
Yeah. Thanks for reusing and recycling.
Absolutely.
So, on this Earth Day, we bring to you a show about Bristol Bay. We'll be getting to that in our coming segments. But first, let's announce our winners for our open fly tie.
This is very exciting.
Yay.
Yay.
This has really been drawn out.
It has. Well, we said we'd announce a winner in April, and we were going to announce it last show, but last show kind of drug on a little longer than most, and so we cut it short and gave them another week. And
Plus, it's still April.
it is still April, so we're kind of on track.
Yeah. Plus, maybe we were just waiting for a worthy tie.
And we did get one in that time frame.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
There's a lesson for you all.
What's the lesson?
Just keep at it.
Okay.
And you'll eventually get it right.
Never give up. Okay.
That's a lot of work.
Measure twice, cut once. And if
Yeah.
that doesn't work,
Perseverance is often overrated.
Yeah.
It's easier to just quit.
Just move on to something else.
quit's such
Yeah.
a harsh word. I mean, it could be just like, I'm going to not do this for some time, and then I'll come back to it.
Yet here we are in episode 12. Persevering.
Well into the double digits.
Yeah. So,
You need three hands now to be a fan of the Open Fly podcast.
yeah. So we said we were going to give out a shirt to the winner, and there was kind of three different entrants that I think deserve a shirt for various reasons. First up, we have Francis, who sent in his entry. Not a winning entry for the tie. It was a great tie. Didn't meet all our criteria, but he also sent it in along with his receipt for a $50 donation to the Native Fish Society. So,
Way to go, Francis.
that deserves shirts.
Nicely done, Francis.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he now gets to sport our shirt and be free advertising for us. So thank you. And next is Keith. He sent in a couple, and the one in particular that we really liked that came really close was called the Zipper Gripper. And you can go onto our Instagram or Facebook and look at that one. Pretty excellent. Pretty representative of our logo.
Now that you say that, I got this visual that,
It's making sense now.
it makes sense, but it also is painful at the same time.
Yeah. Something about Mary comes to mind.
Hot dogs
Getting the beans above the Frank.
Beans above the Frank.
Oh, damn. How'd you get the bean about a Frank?
Yeah, so our winner and anybody that saw the entry will agree, and it was pretty unanimous when we posted it. Sue sent in her pretty much exact replica of our logo, complete with the split tail she made out of a blue zipper. Which who just has a blue zipper laying around?
You're sure that Sue is a woman?
Yes,
Not a boy named Sue?
Well, I've fished with Sue, and I would
okay.
bet that
That's
she's
Sue.
a woman. Yeah.
Was she wearing women's waders?
Yes.
Pink fly rod and reel?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, Sue actually put up a fly tie on Washington Fly Fishing Forum about a year or two ago that she tied out of a tampon.
Okay.
Moving on. So thanks, Sue. No, she hit all our criteria, including, and this is the one thing that we kept kind of hinting at that nobody got. Anybody that looks at our logo, that hook is not very sharp, and all our entries that we got sent in, except for Sue's, were awfully sharp.
And we're not sharp.
No, and nor is our logo. So
we're rather blunted.
yeah, Sue blunted the end of her hook even. So she went down into the details, and the blunted hook was our secret criteria, and she was the only one to nail it.
This is Earth Day, not Sunday. Remember, you got that right?
What?
This is Earth Day. The other day you're talking about, you're a couple days ago.
What day is that?
The blunt day.
Oh, right.
Right.
Oh, right.
So let me play devil's advocate, because I know there's going to be naysayers out there that are going to accuse you of kind of an insider
Nepotism.
interaction, between you and a friend. Did you give Sue a hint?
I gave Sue no hints.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
No, she just emailed me the picture, and that was it.
Well, women are oftentimes much better at the details.
Better listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she nailed it. So I think she just looked at the logo and just piece by piece put it together. You know?
Well played, Sue.
Yeah, so the three of them all deserve shirts for different reasons. So, yay!
Yay. Thanks for playing along, y'all.
How about feedback? Cue up the theme song.
There's not much.
No, well, it's only been a couple days since our last episode, so I'll use that as the excuse for you guys. I'll excuse you guys this one time.
You're more lenient than I am.
Yeah. Do you want to reprimand everybody publicly?
I'd just like to encourage them firmly to take a more active role.
In the content of the show.
Exactly.
Right.
This is your show.
It is. I mean, if we are constantly picking the content, it's not going to be what you all want to hear.
Right.
On that note,
Listener feedback.
yeah.
Brought to you by Olive the Woolly Bugger.
Let's see. Rick writes in, guys, I enjoy your podcast. It's almost like listening to my fishing buddies, only with the advantage of being able to shut you off.
We did include that very handy feature.
Yes. I especially enjoyed episode 11 and the discussion of fish farming. Sadly, fish farming is widespread here on the east coast of Canada. Oh, I should have been
East
reading
Coast
it.
of Canada.
I should have been reading this with a Canadian accent.
Well,
Nothing like eating a pin-raised Atlantic salmon grown in its own shit soup.
which we mentioned.
Yeah. Here in Prince Edward Island, the industrial food complex wasn't satisfied with the nightmare status quo. Seems like someone thought it was a good idea to insert the genes of an ocean pout
I don't know what that is.
I don't either.
Poutine?
Pull out the Googler.
Yeah, an ocean pout.
Get a Canadian dictionary. We need one.
An ocean poot
There we
into that of an Atlantic salmon. I'm told that Chile has the perfect combination of attractive wage rates and liberal environmental regulations to allow farming of the frankenfish. So happy that Canada will be able to continue to help the Chilean people after all of the great things we have done for their gold mining industry.
So they developed a frankenfish in Canada that they are raising in Chile, is what I'm gathering from that.
Or is it vice versa?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, it's bad. It's a bad collaboration between
Correct.
two countries that begin with a C, Chile and Canada.
Yep.
But let's blame Chile, not Canada.
I don't even believe that Chile actually touches the Atlantic Ocean at all, does it?
No.
It's on the western.
What's that got to
coast.
do? What's that got to do with things?
Well, if it would be a Pacific salmon, not an Atlantic salmon. If it was in Chile,
Well, now you're splitting hairs, Derek.
Yeah. They got Atlantic salmon up in British Columbia too. That's also
Yeah.
Pacific
We got them out in our Puget Sound waters.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Okay. Anyway, Rick closes with a thank you and Becky Selengut for the raising awareness on these issues and encouraging people to question what is on their plate. Rick.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've been wanting to get her on the show for a while, and I think, like I mentioned on the previous show, I think our conservation mindset needs to go beyond just the rivers that we're standing in and fishing, because if we're fighting for that river and its fish, but then we go to a restaurant and order an endangered fish from somewhere else, it's
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat.
Indeed. I know that from experience. Anybody else have anything to add to that particular topic?
No, I could read it again just so we have 2 listener feedback.
I could go for about an hour on that topic. So
and actually next week we have the BC Land Trust, who does a lot with the fisheries and stuff there, coming on to talk about some of that, what they're dealing with up there. So we're gonna expand on that a little more next week with an authority, a PhD on the topic.
Yeah, BC PhD.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, mm-hmm. I'll tune in.
Yeah.
Good.
I'll be there for that one. That sounds great.
Yes.
You should be too.
Mm-hmm. All right. You can go to our website at www.theopenflypodcast.com and buy shirts or stickers and donate. And if you do such things, the donate part, you can be entered into our monthly raffle, which next week we will be raffling off a Allen Heritage fly rod of your choice. So go check out allenflyfishing.com, look at the Heritage Rod series, and that is what we're raffling off next week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we need to do is a spot your open fly contest.
No, like take pictures of our stickers and stuff.
No, we should just go and stand ourselves in a corner somewhere someday and just see who drives by with an open fly podcast sticker and hand out goodies.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like a TFM spotting.
We'll be there for a long time.
Or maybe not.
Oh, touche.
You never know.
But you have to have a sticker.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do we need to talk to somebody now, Derek? I think we're going to make a phone call.
I think we've got a great topic coming up. Let's get to it.
Yeah. So you had a quick talk we were going to do with somebody here.
I think we're going to talk to the guys from Rep Your Water. Isn't that correct?
I don't know. You're the one that put it together.
Let's give Garrison a call.
All right.
Garrison, hey, this is Derek with the Open Fly Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Derek.
Good. Tell us a little bit about Rep Your Water. What's the history of the company, and tell us about the products that you're making and why.
Sure. I appreciate you asking. Well, the company started just over 3 years ago, and my history is in art and design, fine art and design. So I went to college out in the Pacific Northwest in your neck of the woods and studied art and design. But fly fishing has always been my passion, and I've been fly fishing since I was tiny. And so I ended up back in Colorado doing some guide work, guiding a lot, working in fly shops, connected with the industry, and just looking at the apparel that was available and on the market, I started to think about wanting to make something that spoke to a locality, spoke to a place in a little bit of a broader way than, buying a hat from a shop that says, XX shop in X location, but something that spoke to a place a little bit more generally. So my wife, Corinne, and I was doing a bunch of sketches and paintings, and we came up with our original Colorado flag trout design, and kind of took off from there. We spent a lot of time up in Wyoming at a little piece of family property, and immediately started to work on some Wyoming designs and, Montana, and kind of grew from there.
So what's been the feedback from your customers? I know that when I saw, what you and your wife were doing at Denver ISE show a couple of years ago, there was a Washington hat with a steel hat on. That speaks to what you're talking about, the place that you represent. So what kind of feedback have you got from your buyers, and what are they saying about your product?
Well, the feedback has been very good. It took off, honestly, a lot faster than either of us anticipated. And there is such a demand for people who really feel strongly about their home waters, or it doesn't even need to be their home waters. It could be, the Washington steelhead that they travel once a year, every year for their fishing trip that they really look forward to, but they feel really passionate about that piece of water. So we had really great feedback, and it was really fun to almost immediately, as kind of people caught on to the concept and having all these different designs to represent different localities, to be getting emails from people in Maine. Where's the Maine design? New York, where's the New York design? And then North Carolina, how about a North Carolina brookie. You know, we love our brook trout, and just hearing so much passion from so many people across the country that really care about their home waters or where they fish.
Nice. So tie that in with the conservation aspect of what your business. What are you doing to give back?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife, Corinne, and I, and we are the company, are both really passionate about conservation and have been our whole lives. So as soon as we kind of had the vision of what we wanted our brand to be, we thought it was really important that not only would you be buying a hat or a shirt or a piece of apparel that spoke to a locality, but that some portion of that purchase was going back to support conservation in that place. So we really wanted a model that didn't just give, 1% to conservation general, to some national organization that filters down whatever. But, if you buy a Colorado Rep Your Water themed product, 1% or more, depending on where you buy it, goes to Colorado Trout Unlimited and directly to the state. So we really wanted to try to set up a conservation model that was a little bit more tangible, and people really felt like not only were they buying a product that represented a place that they love, but they're also giving back to that a little bit. I also think it's really important. A lot of our products appeal to the younger generation. The 30 and under set really connects with our concept and is a big part of our market. And that's, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure, have been to, Trout Unlimited chapter meetings and such, but you don't see a lot of 20-something faces in there. And so we felt it was really important to connect the younger generation to conservation and kind of get, hopefully, some wheels turning and some thought process with that younger set as to some of these nonprofit organizations and the work that they're doing and how you might be able to get involved.
No, that's a great model. I think about the same time I met you, I think I also met Kyle Perkins with the Greenbacks for the first time as well, right?
I believe so, or the year after even.
Mm-hmm. And are you guys working closely with the Greenbacks, or?
We do. We work, Greenbacks are an offshoot of Colorado TU. So we work very closely with Colorado TU and then with the Greenbacks as well. And, we're all working, we all believe in the same thing. So we donate a lot of stuff to Trout Unlimited events. And, I was just actually having a conversation with one of the Greenbacks and talking about how we can kind of cross-pollinate a little bit on social media and work on some things. And they're doing a lot of work on Browns Canyon here in Colorado. And, so that's been a really great connection with us. And, for where you guys in the Pacific Northwest, like I said, I went to school out in Portland, Oregon, and so I really feel passionate about steelhead as well. And so we work with the Wild Steelhead Coalition, and our Oregon, Washington, Idaho themed apparel all goes to 1% goes to the Wild Steelhead Coalition. So that's been a great partnership for us, and one that we're looking to really grow and expand in the Pacific Northwest for sure.
Is there any plans or anything of the sort to expand into Rep Your podcast? I'm just throwing that idea out there. If you want to do the open fly representation, we can work on a licensing deal.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. We'll work on that.
Right. Otherwise, I think that covers it pretty good. You guys are doing a cool thing, and it's just it's encouraging to see young companies coming up and doing the stuff to give back. So
yeah, it's a smart business model. So kudos to you and your wife, Garrison.
Yeah. Well done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, guys, and I appreciate you giving me a little time to talk to you. And
well, Garrison, let's
keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, let's do something here. If you're open to it, our listeners have proven that if the cause is important, they will give to conservation groups, and Wild Steelhead Coalition is one of our friends, and we all support it here. Can we work out a free Rep Your Water product to somebody that donates to the podcast via the Wild Steelhead Coalition?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to donate, a hat or two, and then we can just give the proceeds to Wild Steelhead Coalition, or
Awesome.
however you guys want to roll that.
Cool. Way to back him into the corner on live podcast.
Yeah, give us free stuff.
Well,
Absolutely.
actually, that brings up kind of an interesting topic. I mean, any small business wants to support requests for free swag and things and sponsorship, and it's hard when you're not making a whole lot of money to say yes to everybody that asks you to support, but that from a PR standpoint, it's important for visibility to show that support. So
there are a few more visible than the Open Fly podcast, so we kind of backed them into a corner.
So here's what we'll do here. For every $50 donation that goes to Wild Steelhead Coalition, the person who eventually randomly his name is drawn for $50, I'll match that to WSC as well, just to help cover Garrison's cost on that hat, because I believe in the product.
All right.
I'm in.
All right. How's that sound, Garrison?
That sounds great.
Right on. Well,
All right, we're going to let you go.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Rep Your Water is one of those brands that means a lot to the industry, and especially that young conservation crowd. If they're starting to take notice and care a little bit more, that's a great thing. So thanks.
Yeah, the flat-brimmed
Excellent.
hats for the younger kids.
They're flat brimmers.
All right.
So
They come with a flat brim. I would, point out they are easily bendable to your preference.
I prefer a nice, sensible curve to my
I'm
brims.
not a flat brim myself, but we have a lot of guys that like to fish with their hat pretty low on their glasses. So even if they don't love a flat brim, they maybe don't want too much of a curve. So
good point.
That's called
how that goes.
mending your brim.
I've got the puffy jacket, but I still haven't straightened out my brim yet, so I'm getting there.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah.
And keep your eyes out. We have a new Mount Rainier design and a new salmon fly design coming out here in the next few months.
Mount Rainier or
for you
Rainier
Pacific
beer?
Northwest guys. What's that?
Is that Mount Rainier or a Rainier beer version? That's more.
We're hoping more Mount Rainier.
All right.
Perfect. Well, where do we find your
Nothing
products?
against the beer.
Yeah. Tell us where we can find your products.
You
Garrison.
can find us on the website, www.repyourwater.com. But be sure and check out our retailers link there. We're just growing. We just got a new retail, the Avid Angler in the Seattle area has a lot of our stuff now, and Pacific Fly Fisher. And so just check out the retailers page on the website there, and you'll be able to see what local fly shops in your area have our stuff.
Nice.
Cool. Well, we have listeners the globe over, so be ready.
Perfect.
Just be ready.
Well, we can ship internationally, but unfortunately it's not very cheap at this point, but we're happy to do it.
You might need a Rep Your World hat.
Yeah. Great.
That's
All right, Garrison,
right.
thanks so much. We're going to let you go here.
Hey, you
Thank you.
guys, have a great day. Appreciate the time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cool. Yeah, that's a neat thing that they got going on there.
Yeah, I mean, outside of their state region-specific business model, it would otherwise just be more fly fishing swag. But it's really geared towards.
It's different.
Yep, it's different, and in most cases, that's bad.
Like
but
us,
not
we're
in this
different. And the verdict is still out on that one.
So I'll add a little clarity to the offer on the website or on our Facebook page today.
Yeah, I
about
don't fully understand
about the
yet.
matching offer. So basically, if you donate $50 to the Wild Steel Coalition and you send us the receipt of doing that, we'll put your name in for a drawing for a Rep Your Water lid. We may even do two. So the person whose name we randomly draw that gave the $50 to WSC, I will personally match that as well on behalf of the Emerging Rivers Guide Service. So $100 to WSC, and people get some hats.
All right.
And I will do the same.
Right on.
I'm poor.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'll make the donation in your name, Evan.
All right. Oh, thank you. All right. I think we're going to go to break here unless anybody else has things you want to just waffle on about here. Any waffling? No?
No, but I am hungry.
Yeah, I might need to rep my bladder here before we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go to break here. We'll be back in just a moment with our conservation segment with Scott Haid from the Sportsman's Alliance for Alaska.
It's a short break, so don't go too far away.
Right. Real short.
Good reference to the short.
All right. We'll be right back.
This is Derek, and on behalf of Stream Tech Boats, I want to talk to you about 3 factors that I consider really important when you're choosing a drift boat, and that's safety, fun, and performance. These are the safest drift boats around to float out of. They're fun to row, and from a performance standpoint, if you're a professional on the water, all 3 of these factors are important. So let's take a second to hear from the man who designed the boat himself.
I tried pretty much everything, that just none of them were really doing what I wanted. So we set out to design a boat. I'd call it the one boat that would maneuver like the hard boats, that would go in the really rough places, that would float high, that would have all the amenities that come on a hard boat with anchor systems and good leaning, a very nice flat floor that you can inflate hard, that you can stand on, no bolts, no nuts, no pins, no clips, nothing to put it together. For the reasons that it's so good for fishing, it got this rocker, and so it pivots quickly, and it slides out on the foam pile when you come off big drops. That rocker just climbs right out on the foam pile. A total game changer.
So there you have it. My recommendation, Link's words. Look for us at www.streamtechboats.com. Call Link directly. He'll answer that phone, and he'll get you on your way towards the best drift boat on the market.
Now back to the open fly.
And we are back with our conservation segment. Today's conservation segment is brought to you by Wetlander Boat Coatings, the ultimate in slick bottom boat coatings. There we go.
Say that again.
No, I said it once, and that's enough. This is one of the couple products that we are endorsing on the show because we believe in the product and personally use it and think it's legitimately that good. I've actually pretty much everybody that's come by and seen my boat since I put that on there has shown an interest in getting some for either their trailer or their boat. It's flexible. It doesn't chip and flake off like the others. It's substantially more slick, almost friction-free. Like I told the story, I put it on the bottom of my boat and on my trailer, and that Wetlander to Wetlander coating together created a surface so slick that my boat almost slid into the back of my truck when I put it up on the trailer. So this is the real deal. It's the best coating on the market. You can check them out at www.airboatcoatings.com. If you want my own personal testimony on it, you can always just contact me directly or anything like that. I'd love to talk to you about it. I legitimately do believe in it and think it's that great of a product. So moving on to our segment now. Okay, and now we have Scott Haight on the line from the Sportsman's Alliance for Alaska. He says he's the janitor for them. So, Scott, thanks for coming on board.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. I just got the office cleaned up, so I got the time.
In addition to janitorial duties, what are your kind of secondary tasks that you take care of there?
Every once in a while, they let me answer the phone. I get a computer, so I get to dink around online and send emails. But seriously, I mainly work on Alaska conservation efforts, and the big thing I've worked on for about the last 8 years is the proposed Pebble mine project out in Bristol Bay.
Right on. So I'm sure most of our listeners are familiar with the Pebble mine to some degree. I mean, I think the Pebble mine sticker is one of the most recognizable things on fly fishing vehicles today. I mean, they're just everywhere. So somebody's at least seen the sticker. If somebody's not totally sure what that sticker or that logo or any of that means, what's kind of a brief synopsis on kind of what's going on there? Kind of fill everybody in on the basics of what's going on.
All right, here's the Cliff Notes version. Bristol Bay is in southwest Alaska, a couple hundred miles southwest of Anchorage. It's an area that's accessible only by plane or boat. Can't drive to get out there. It happens to be the most productive wild salmon fishery left on planet Earth. All 5 species of wild Pacific salmon come back there in big numbers. The most prolific of the runs is the sockeye run that comes back to Bristol Bay, numbering in the tens of millions of fish every year. It is a destination that is on the bucket list for fly anglers from all across the world. People have been coming to Bristol Bay for several decades to catch some of the biggest wild rainbow trout you're going to find anywhere, grayling, Arctic char, and again all those salmon. And oh, by the way, a foreign mining company wants to put the biggest open pit copper and gold mine in North America right in the headwaters of it. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
So for those that aren't aware, of the issue, Pebble Mine is not a proposed rock quarry, correct?
Those of you who may have watched
Hank Patterson's
video lately that he did last week, no, it is not a proposed project that would mine pebbles. And when I saw that on his video, I about wet my pants because, believe it or not, I am not kidding you, that is one of the questions over the years that I, honest to God, have fielded pretty regularly.
Like, why do they want to mine pebbles?
Yeah,
Exactly. No, it's a proposed copper, gold, and molybdenum mine.
What's the third one?
Molybdenum. It's a tongue twister, and it's fun to spell, and it's apparently used as a hardening agent in the steel industry.
sounds like something that should be left in the ground.
There's a big mine for it in Colorado, right outside of between Leadville and Copper Mountain, and you go over this pass, and it's just right there. And if you've taken that drive before, you can see what mining for that product really does to the environment.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a hardening agent that you would find at the pharmacy.
This one lasts much longer than 4 hours, though, Evan. And there was a stream at the headwaters of the Arkansas that this mine was sitting right on top of. And I used to drive past this thing all the time, thinking, "What a great place to fish!" But you could tell that water was just not healthy.
Because it was orange?
That's the color.
So I think that's a good segue into, and I think a lot of it's pretty implied. I mean, anybody with common sense on these things can kind of tell that why that at the headwaters would be bad. But what are some of the dangers? And I've been following this long enough to kind of know that there's a lot of inevitables that are going to happen. So what are the biggest dangers that are going to happen to those rivers if that goes in?
Sure, I'll run through a couple of them here shortly. But you used the phrase common sense. And, I spent some time this winter going around doing some of the fly shows. Evan, I saw you at the Pleasanton show.
You sure did.
And that's where I got my start, 8 years ago, running around the country talking to people about this great place and this, dark cloud on the horizon. And this winter kind of came full circle, and I thought to myself, why do so many people have to work so hard for so long for something that is so obvious?
Right.
The risks that this mine would pose, you're talking about building an open pit that would be a mile and a half long, couple miles, or a mile and a half wide, couple miles long, 1,700 feet deep, and doing it in an area that is amazingly wet. The hydrology is incredibly complicated. Surface water and underground water mixes all over the place. Waters that you think are going to go into one drainage end up in another drainage. And the ability to build something like that in a place like Bristol Bay, poses some real significant threats. How are you going to store 11 billion tons of mine waste from now till the sun burns out behind a series of earthen dams that are going to have to, stand the test of time in an area that gets frequent earthquake and seismic activity and volcano explosions? So, the risks are pretty potent if you think about a monstrous episode having with a catastrophic event. Over time, the insidious risks that happen are slowly leaching byproduct into the groundwaters, which then enter these rivers and impact salmon's ability to find their way back. They say copper, I believe it's in as low as about 2 parts per billion can impair a salmon's ability to return to its natal streams. So in the large scale, horrific event, while the risk of that is, maybe pretty small, the risk is there. You're still going to have problems over time because the mining industry has kind of shown that over time there's going to be problems. They haven't really had a great track record of operating something for a long period of time without any impact. And we don't believe Bristol Bay is the place to, think they're going to get it right finally.
Scott, this is probably one of the biggest campaigns that I can think of right now that fly fishing community as a specific niche has really kind of gotten behind. And everybody that's in fly fishing knows about the Save the Bristol Bay campaign. What have you learned from running this campaign that can apply to issues like this in the future? What are some of the things that have worked really, really well in terms of getting awareness on this? And what's next in terms of making sure that this thing gets hammered shut? And it's a question I've asked before, kind of closes, how do we move the discussion away from we should put a mine here and have to fight for 10 years to stop it, to let's put mines in places where they make a little bit more sense?
Well, I tell you, let's see here. The best way that I can say, what are the lessons to be learned, I've felt really privileged to work on this campaign with some really talented, smart, hardworking people for a number of years. And I always say the lessons that are going to come away from this, number one, when we win this thing, and I'm an optimist, you have to be an optimist to do this kind of work, but I'm also realistically thinking that, yes, we are going to win this thing someday, and hopefully someday soon. When we do, I think it'll stand as the signature freshwater fisheries conservation victory of our lifetime. But number two, I think it ought to serve as a model or an example of how various diverse groups can work together on an issue that they all have a stake in to accomplish something for the better good. In the case of Bristol Bay, broadly speaking, you've got 3 user groups of this magnificent salmon resource who have been, in past years, it's probably not too much to say, at each other's throats over allocation of that resource. You've got the native residents of the region who have been there for generations, centuries, longer than that, who have depended upon this resource, essentially as their grocery store. The commercial fishing industry has been in Bristol Bay and operating for over 130 years, and they're able to do so because that resource is managed very well by the fisheries managers out in Bristol Bay. And then, about 50 years ago or so, the sport fishing industry came in, and like I said, they've been at loggerheads over allocation of the fish resource. Pebble came along, and it posed a big enough threat to all of their futures that they got together and said, listen, let's set aside our, past disagreements, and let's fight together on behalf of this resource. So that's tremendous. From my perspective, or my component of the campaign, which I've significantly focused my efforts on the sport fishing and sport hunting community, and we've got nearly 1,100 angling and hunting groups and businesses from all around the country and a couple dozen countries overseas who have weighed in on this thing, telling the Environmental Protection Agency, take the right steps, protect this resource. Now, these are people that range from catch and release anglers and every company that makes gear that you're going to find in your gear boxes, to big game hunting guides, companies who make firearms and ammunition, and you've got big game hunters to catch and release anglers. You can't get much more diverse than that from the sportsman side of things. No. And a lot of those folks, in the past maybe haven't supported, the EPA taking action in the past. EPA sometimes is viewed as, almost a dirty word, and not maybe in some circles the most favorite federal agency, but in this case, they're doing great things. So I think that's going to be the biggest message is, set aside your differences, focus on those things that you've got in common, and you can really accomplish big things.
Nice.
Yeah. Scott, a question about that. So right now you've got the different interest groups that have kind of rallied around the fight against Pebble. Let's say that the mine is defeated, hopefully soon. Have the groups come together on a common ground enough such that after Pebble's gone, will they go back to infighting, or will they maintain a positive allegiance for the region?
Well, I work primarily in the lower 48 and around the country. There's a lot of folks in Alaska working on this campaign, but I would say that some really strong relationships have been forged over this issue and during this battle. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that everything's always rainbows and flowers and smiley faces.
Unicorns.
And unicorns, exactly. But I can't say for sure that everybody's going to always get along on things in the future. That's probably unrealistic. But I do think that the relationships that have been forged during this battle have really, paved the way for working together more cooperatively in the future.
Right.
Yeah. So let's take us up to current events. It seems like the last couple months a lot has come up. It seems every other week I'm seeing articles and stuff posted all over the internet. Here's the final nail in the coffin for the Pebble mine. It's over. It's done. And then a week later, it's very clear that it's not. So kind of clear up some of the more recent events and what that means moving forward.
Sure. That is one of the challenges that we've had in the last, I would say, 6 months. And, I'm not going to say this is a bad challenge to have. It's a great challenge to have when you're having to tell people that, hey, we haven't won yet, but really great things are happening. Let's just see. Over the course of about the last 3 years, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, which has got a role to play in this whole debate because of the Clean Water Act, the EPA was asked to take a look at Bristol Bay by Alaska Native groups in the region, the commercial fishing industry, and the sport fishing interests out there. And EPA has the ability to use the Clean Water Act to, either outright, prohibit mining in the area or place some common sense restrictions on what would be allowed in the area. Well, EPA conducted a 3-year study. They called it the Bristol Bay Watershed Assessment. It was an incredibly detailed and transparent process. It was open to public comment 2 times, 2 different drafts. It was also peer-reviewed by a panel of independently selected expert scientists from various fields who picked apart the document, asked EPA to improve it in certain areas or clarify things. And in January, the EPA came out with what they called the final Bristol Bay Watershed Assessment. And you know what? It said what we've said all along. You can't build a monster mine like Pebble in a place like Bristol Bay without having significant adverse impacts on that fishery. You're talking 90-some miles of stream habitat being wiped out, thousands of acres of wetlands being removed, and then all the threats that we discussed earlier of potential long-term and short-term impacts from pollution and catastrophic events. So that is what came out in January. We said, great job, EPA, thanks. It says everything that we've said all along. But then again, we had to tell people this is not the end of the road. EPA produced, it's essentially a monstrous book report about Bristol Bay. What are the existing values of this place, and what are the threats to those values from something on the magnitude of Pebble? They didn't have to do anything with it. It could just sit on the shelf and gather dust, waiting for Pebble to, maybe someday apply for permits, which they've ironically said, every year they've said for about the last 6, 7, 8 years, hey, next year we're going to apply for permits. Next year we're going to apply for permits. Well, they simply have never done it. So anyway, the report came out in January. It was great for us, but, nothing actionable. In February, the EPA actually took the step of initiating a part of the Clean Water Act called Section 404C. It's going to be technical, getting way into the weeds here, and I'm not going to do that. But they initiated this part of the Clean Water Act that we believe can lead to the protection of Bristol Bay. That process, we think, could play out over the next year, and it'll involve EPA having dialogue with the state of Alaska and the Pebble Limited Partnership, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, over the proposed construction of a monstrous mine in the watersheds of the Nishigack River and the Kvichak River. So there will also be public comment period during this process. If it advances through the summer, we anticipate a potential public comment period where folks, once again, and I'm going to thank you in advance because you've done it so many times already, will have the chance to chime in and say, no big mines in Bristol Bay, this fishery is far too valuable. And then we hope at the end of this process, EPA will come out and take the steps that either prohibit mines being built in those watersheds or place some really stringent and common sense restrictions on what would be allowed in those areas. And we think, that could potentially be done in such a fashion that, the developer has the chance to come forward with a plan, but knowing what those restrictions would be, it's going to be really hard for them to, come up with something that would pass muster. Mm-hmm. So that's where the EPA is at. Right now they are waiting for the developer to come back with their response to EPA's concerns. That's where that's at. The other great news that we've had over the last several months, last fall, the big British partner in this project, Anglo American, decided, hey, we've spent $500 and some odd million in this effort trying to study this project. We are going to walk away and take a flat-out loss of $300 million just to wipe our hands of Pebble. So they left last September, one of the biggest mining companies in the world. Before they left, a couple of years before, Mitsubishi also decided it wasn't worth their time. So they were out.
So who's left?
Who's left is a company called Northern Dynasty Minerals. Northern Dynasty Minerals is a small company based in British Columbia. And, I like to say the only thing they've ever mined is the stock market. And if you go and look at the history of their stock, they haven't really been mining that very well either.
Gotcha.
They actually were held about 19% by another major mining company called Rio Tinto. And Rio Tinto very recently announced that their 19% stake in Northern Dynasty, and Northern Dynasty's only asset is Pebble. So Rio had a 19% stake in the Pebble project. Rio Tinto said, hey, we're out. We're going to donate our shares to a couple charitable foundations in the state of Alaska. So it wasn't even worth
quite a turnaround.
Yeah, it wasn't even worth them trying to sell it for less than $1 a share. So, the other side is vowing to soldier on, move forward, eventually get this to a permitting phase. But like I said, we've heard that before. Right now, their major task is to try and find some partner to buy into the project because Northern Dynasty does not have the financial resources to carry this thing to through the entire project.
Good luck finding investors for that.
Right. Well,
It's not a good sign when three major mining companies in the world have all bowed out in the last few years.
Right.
I have an investor story actually from a day on the water with a client. I think it was 2 years ago. So I used the aluminum clean canteen bottles instead of the reusable plastic just because that's the right thing to do. It was a hot day. The guy in the front of the boat asked for some water, so I reached into the cooler and pulled out my clean canteen and handed it to him. I've got a No Pebble Mine sticker on the side of it, and he goes, "Oh, you're one of those." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" He says, "Well, I'm a shareholder in Northern Dynasty, and I want a return on my investment." So you can imagine how that rest of that day went from there. Well, I tried to explain.
I hope he paid you in cash and not in stock.
Oh yeah, he was already paid in full. But for when we encounter situations like that, especially because there's going to be guides and anglers listening who have people that maybe they're aware, maybe they're not even, maybe they're unaware of that they are in fact de facto shareholders in companies that benefit off of mining and extractive resources. How do you have that conversation with a person who their only objective is one, they're on the water fly fishing, they're enjoying a sport that requires cold, clean water, but they're also, gaining an income off of extractive resources. How do you have that conversation with somebody to get them to at least get to common ground?
Oh, I mean that's a tough one, especially if you're floating a guy on a trip. I would imagine that's not a easy rest of the day.
Lunch was quick. Yeah, lunch was quick.
Move on to another subject rapidly, but the great thing about Pebble is we have kept this year, this campaign, focused on this mine in this place. We have not turned it into an anti-mining crusade. I mean, there's nobody who can flat out honestly say that we don't need mining and we don't need minerals, because that's not realistic. There are, however, some places that are so special, so valuable in their current form, and Bristol Bay is not a place that's sitting idly by, just a nice place to look at. Bristol Bay is an economic engine all by itself in its current form. 14,000 people are employed because of that fishery. It means about $1.5 billion to the economy every single year because those fish return. Mm-hmm. And is it worth risking that resource and that economy for something that in the past has proven to be pretty harmful to clean water and everything that depends on it? So in our campaign, I think the best way to address that issue is to keep it on this mine in this place and not let it devolve into a anti-development, argument.
Right.
Yeah.
Easier said than done sometimes, no doubt about it.
Well, there's a lot of passion surrounding a matter like this, and it's hard not to let it, spill out into a general type of campaign. But
and if that guy has that particular guy you mentioned, if he happened to buy at X dollars per share, and now his shares were sitting there at 1/10 of X, he's not in a good mood about Pebble Mine. He's not jazzed about seeing your sticker.
I think this was at a high point for the stock, so I think he was a little cocky, to tell you the truth.
Did he tip well?
I don't remember. In fact, if I got anything, I probably burned it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know at some point anybody on the internet that's a fisherman or anything like that's probably seen this quote, but it seems to always ring true when I think about this thing, and that's that one that's misquoted and attributed to a lot of different people. It says, like, we can't eat money. And I think that really applies to this because you're looking to replace essentially a food source, not just an economic engine, but Bristol Bay is a source of food and sustenance, and they want to replace it with basically something that's used for luxury items and things of that nature is kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the economy that you can put dollars and cents to is the tourism, the commercial fishing, the sport fishing, sport hunting. That you can put a price tag on. You can't put a price tag on what that resource means to the people who live in Bristol Bay and depend upon it for a healthy share of their, sustenance. So,
I mean, we got that, and it's the same in like Southwest British Columbia with the fish farms. Putting some of the wild fish stocks in danger. Replacing large runs of naturally reproducing resource with a much smaller, farm operation. So it's kind of the same thing. Where we're just kind of to the people that can. That aren't as in tune to it are the ones that look to benefit from things like the mine. They just see it as, it's just a fish. And I saw a lot of that when I was at the hearing in Seattle. Was it 2-3 years ago now? There's the very few supporters that were there, and it was like 1 in 4 or 5 that were in support of the mine. Kind of had that same attitude of it's just a fish. Like why are we all concerned about a fish? Like who cares? And
yeah, I like to say that as a species we've been around for it depends on your view of creationism or anything like that, but we've been around for an awful long time, and you'd think that over time we get smarter and we learn from our mistakes. But
some of us do.
Unfortunately, well, it depends on how many mistakes you have to learn from too,
right.
I suppose. Well, unfortunately, one thing that has not been bred out of us yet, and I don't think ever will be, and that's the greed gene. Mm-hmm. So that's always going to be, there's always going to be someone looking to make a buck off of something, someplace.
And it seems like those ones always float to the top and become the powerful ones, unfortunately.
That and bad fashion.
Yeah, exactly.
Green jeans were never cool.
Bad haircuts. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Green Jeans was a pretty good character.
Yeah.
Oh wait, as Hank says, they have stylists, not barbers. Something.
Yeah, exactly. Hat tip to Hank right there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. We're about out of time. Is there anything in closing you wanted to leave people with, or anywhere where they can go online to find out more, donate money, get involved, get their sticker? I'm wearing a shirt right now.
He is. Hold that up close to the mic.
Yeah, I'm wearing, I don't know if you see the one from Dave at Strip and Flywear with the sockeye on it, the No Pebble Mine.
Great segue. I'm working with Dave on a new project. Has not been announced yet, but stay tuned because there may be version 2.0 of that shirt coming.
Nice.
This summer.
Maybe we'll get Dave on, kind of do what we did with Rep Your Water, just kind of another clothing company that's doing a lot of really involved conservation stuff. So
that would be a good idea. I would back your idea of that for a future episode.
Yeah, he seems to be going all out on the conservation stuff. So
yeah,
good for you, Dave.
He's been great, no doubt. So first of all, what I'm going to say for my wrap up, number one is, thank you to everyone out there who has, over the course of the last how many years? I mean, it seems like it's been around forever. Thank you for every time that you've been called on to contact your member of Congress, contact the EPA, and stand up for Bristol Bay. It's making a difference. It's why we are where we are today, and it's why we have a really strong shot at winning this thing in the next year. If you want to follow what's going on with the campaign, I'll say a couple websites, savebristolbay.org, or look for Save Bristol Bay on Facebook. And my personal project's website is Sportsman's Alliance 4AK, and that's the numeral 4.org. Donations can be made through, any of those sites. Any and all amounts are welcome and appreciated and valuable. And one thing I'll just give a little heads up, later in the year, the fly fishing industry has been tremendously helpful, supportive in so many ways over all this time that I've worked on this. Later in the year, I'm going to revive my online fundraising auction that has been helpful in raising some pretty nice sums of money in years past. And keep an eye out for Sportsman's Alliance for Alaska. We'll be running an online auction with gear from probably all the fly companies we're looking at, guide trips around the lower 48, trips to Alaska. It's a win-win-win. It's the products get some publicity for helping out, and we thank them tremendously. The cause raises some money, and people who buy stuff, sometimes get really good deals on it. You're doing a great thing. So
yeah, that's kind of a good segue. We had talked a little bit about beforehand, and we failed to talk about it last week, and so far I failed to mention it. But Camille, who we had on the show last week, is pretty involved in this because her family's lodge or her family's guiding operation is on the Nishigak, which is part of this, and they've been pretty involved in this as well. So going fishing with them would be a good way to go see it firsthand and be supporting people that are supporting this cause.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, there's dozens of operators out there, and, they've all been tremendous. They're all competitors in the end for the angler's dollar, but once again, it's another example of, competitors working together for something that's supporting them all. So,
Kirk, you had something to say?
Was that Camille Egdorf by chance?
Right. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Camille Egdorf.
Yeah, she was just on your guys' episode last week.
Indeed.
And, she's essentially grown up every summer in Bristol Bay. Her mom and dad have had a fish camp on the Nishigak, as you said, for a long time.
Mm-hmm. I was going to suggest that maybe we get her on the show, but apparently she was on last week.
Yes. Indeed.
We are clairvoyant.
Yep. So, yeah, she's actually even has an appearance in that Red Gold film. So, yeah.
Yes, indeed. And she actually, I think, just had her own little film that she put out in the last year about the family fishing operation, kind of like behind the scenes, look behind the curtain.
Right. That's cool. All right, Scott, we very much appreciate your time spent with us here. It was very informative.
Yeah, keep fighting the good fight. Thanks for your leadership.
I appreciate it, Derek.
No problem. Like I said, I'm part of a big team of a lot of talented people. I've just been working on it maybe longer than a lot of them, but thanks for everybody's support. Thanks for you guys having me on. Keep up the fight, everybody. Stick with us, and we're going to have one hell of a party when this is all said and done.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Will there be beer?
Let's see, fly fishing and maybe
beer.
Hooray!
Hooray!
I like beer.
Cool. Good job.
All right, Scott. Thanks so much. We're going to let you go here.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, so what I take away from that is he mentioned the one mining company that pulled out and cut their losses at $300 and some odd million.
Rio Tinto?
It's not that much.
No, it's not that much, but think about the different officers that sit on the board of these large corporations. The one office that's missing is the office of the CSO, which is a common sense officer who could have said years ago, hey, if you want to make a quick $300 million, don't even propose this bullshit project.
Right. I mean, from the get-go, the first time I heard about it, I was just said, I know that money talks, and a lot of times these big, huge corporations like this can pull a lot of weight, but this was a different one where I was said, and one of the only instances where I said it's not happening. There's no way they're going to pull that off.
Nah, but at the same time, you can't take for granted the fact that something so horrendous as Pebble Mine would fail. You have to mount an opposition, and it speaks to the overall need for advocacy against things that you disagree with.
Oh, yeah. If there was never, if Scott and the Sportsman's Alliance and Trout Unlimited and all these things hadn't popped up, it would have been very different. So
these things are they're just financial drills. That's all that it is. It's guys sitting around a table saying, let's start a campaign that we're going to spend $300 million on just to do something. This is play money for people like this. Yeah. There's a similar issue right now on the Smith River, Montana, where somebody wants to put a copper mine at the headwaters of the Smith. And I did that float a couple of years ago, and I can't imagine where it is located and what it would take to do that. I mean, I felt like it was obtrusive to have, a guy who lived out there fly his helicopter over the river spying on us as we're floating by. I can't imagine cranes and dump trucks and...
Well, and you don't have to look too far back in history to find out what happened to the Clark Fork. I mean,
Clark
it was a
Fork.
sterile river for a period of time.
Due to mining?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were on the Blackfoot a couple weeks ago and got stopped by a game warden who was just checking access areas to make sure everything was open, and he said, "Oh, by the way, you guys aren't planning on keeping any fish today, right?" Said, "No, we're all catch and release." He goes, "Oh, good, because we just found out that there's a paper operation down there in Bonner that's been leaching chemicals into the river for the last 100 years, and so we don't advise anybody to eat the fish."
Yeah, I don't think I'd eat a fish out of most waters in Montana or Oregon or Idaho.
Yeah. That was...
It's just these fights are in every state.
Yeah,
everybody's got them. So
we talked a month or two ago about the proposed dam on the Skykomish, and I mean this is actually some good news. That this last week, pretty much they put the kibosh on that plan.
Well, yes.
Yes and no.
The inflatable weir section, they've downsized the scope of the proposed project, but it's not completely dead. They're still talking about a tunnel that would require blasting and boring and things like that. So,
but it's progress.
Yeah, it's the first step towards defeating the proposal.
Mm-hmm. So anybody that wants more info on that can listen to show, was it 7 or something like that? The one with Rick Matney on Guide Stories and Skykomish proposed dam, but it's starting to have some progress to going away. And for us, it's important because the Skykomish is up the road. Yeah, it's up the highway from us.
Downstream, but up the road.
Right. So it's in our neighborhood. So for us here, it's pretty important.
Yeah, and you have something in your own backyard that needs some protecting. We'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, we put a call to action out on our Facebooks yesterday, and we're always open to hearing what's going on in your area. Since we are in the Pacific Northwest, we are very keyed in on the issues in this part of the world. But, as distance becomes greater between us and the issues, so does our ability to come across it and stuff.
So when we posted that call to action on Facebook and 200,000 people saw it, but only 4 liked it, it means that the message didn't really get out. So
Facebook isn't very good at that.
No, they're not our friend. Mm-mm. But seriously, we need eyes and ears from all parts of the country and the world. If you've got a piece of water or a delicate piece of land affecting headwaters, fisheries, whatnot, that needs a shout out, give us a call.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do.
I thought we were here to. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We've been very serious lately, but this is a serious issue.
Yeah.
Too serious.
Oh shit, my flag's open. Damn
yeah.
It.
We need to lighten up a little bit.
Look away.
Yeah.
Let's get to guide stories. We got a good one coming up.
We do. We're going to go to break first, but yeah, we got a Bristol Bay themed guide stories coming up, so stay tuned for that. Anybody want to close the segment off before we go to break?
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Hey, me too.
Potty break.
We'll be right back.
Wrap your water.
Now back to the open fly. All right, we are back with our guide segment. Today's guide segment is brought to us by Emerging Rivers Guide Service. That's Derek. You can find him at www.emergingrivers.com. Is that correct, Derek?
That is correct.
Awesome. And we forgot to mention a funny little story from Scott. When we called Scott for our last segment, so we use Skype here in the studio, and every time we sign into Skype and make calls, it actually randomly generates a phone number that dials out from us. So when we show up on somebody's caller ID, it's just a random number. So when we called Scott, our randomly generated number was it came up as a number that was already in his phone and saved from an acquaintance of his that had passed away the previous year. So he just thought all of a sudden he was getting called by a dead guy. And we forgot to mention that on the previous segment, but we thought it was funny.
Mystical powers of the open fly.
So he's like, who the hell is this? And then it was just us.
Yeah, we're not dead yet.
No, we're not dead yet. So on that note, we're going to go to guide stories. Derek, take it away.
Yeah, and let's talk with somebody who is actually alive and quite certainly alive because he's just about everywhere all of the time. So
including in a parking lot.
Including in a parking lot. So that's where you find your best guides. So, Adam, welcome to the Open Fly Podcast.
Thank you guys very much for having me. I appreciate it.
How's the scenery there in the parking lot?
Yeah, it's not too bad. There's some local flair in here, like most fishing communities, you get all mix of people.
Now, how do we pronounce your last name? I don't want to slaughter it on air.
No, it's a tough one. It's Franceschini, long Italian name, Franceschini.
Franceschini.
Oh,
yep,
absolutely.
say it like you're Italian, Franceschini.
Yeah,
Franceschini.
forget about it.
Okay. So, why are you in Hancock, New York right now? Is that the point in your guide season where this is where you're at for a little while?
That's right. Yeah, it's my first season working for West Branch Anglers up on the Upper Delaware in the Catskill Mountains of New York. And this is where I've been here since April 1st, and I'll stay here till May 28th, in which I fly up to Tick Chick Narrows Lodge in Bristol Bay, Alaska.
Oh, that makes sense. We just had to where this is the Bristol Bay show.
What a coincidence!
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. How's the water conditions back in the Upper Delaware?
We just came down from pretty high water, off-colored water, but this past week it's come down. It's good. These are all big rivers. For those folks that have fished out west or up in Alaska, I mean, that's what we got here, big drift boat-style rivers. There's two main branches, the east and the west, and then they form the Upper Delaware, which flows in the Delaware Bay.
Is it like Clark Fork big through St. Regis, or is it Madison big?
It's like, I think the best way to describe it, it's real close to the Missouri, as well as style and size.
Mm-hmm.
Are you slaying any hogs?
No hogs, but we've caught some decent fish. The streamer bite's been off and on. We've had cold water temps. The East Coast has gotten pummeled with 0-degree temps all winter, and it's been slow streamer bite, but it's starting to pick up here.
What kind of bugs do you have scheduled to hatch this time of year?
That's the beauty about the Upper Delaware. Right now we have bugs coming off. We have early stones, we have blue quills, we have quill Gordons, some olives, and then the Hendricksons are our first big hatch. They haven't really started yet. There's been some hearsay that they've seen a few bugs here and there, but that's the tough thing about here is really matching the hatch because, we got all 4 or 5 of those bugs hatching right now at the same time, and that's the challenge of this area.
You get a lot of masking hatches then.
Exactly, a lot of max catches.
So for somebody like me that doesn't do the trout thing often, what's that mean?
It means that you might see a bug and you're like, okay, I identify that bug as, let's say, a caddis, a granum, a green caddis, and they're all over the water, but yet the fish is actually eating an olive, and so you're fishing a caddis and you're getting frustrated. Hey, why isn't the fish eating my fly? Well, because he's not eating that particular bug right now.
Trout are assholes. It's like salmon and steelhead. You can pretty much throw anything at them, and if you get it in their face, they'll take it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So your guide year pretty much, what's your guide year look like? Where are you at in January? Where are you at in December? Kind of walk us through where you're at during the year.
Yeah, so this year, 2014, I pushed myself to really go more than I have been. So this year, 2014, I kicked off. I went down to the South Holston in Bristol, Tennessee. Working for the South Holston River Lodge. It's a true tailwater, which means that it's a dam release from the bottom. A lot of midge fishing, blue-wing olives. It's dam release so that most days when they're releasing water, it's about 2,500 CFS. When they're not releasing water, it's around 900 CFS. So I was there from January, February, March. Spent some time down in Charleston, South Carolina with my buddies doing some red fishing. And then came up to Hancock, New York to guide for West Branch, April and May. Then I'll go to Tick Chick Narrows in Bristol Bay, June, July, August, middle of September. Come back up to New York State, and then fish on the west Upper Delaware system, and then go after. I won't insult you guys. The Lake Run Rainbows of the Great Lakes. For
attaboy.
Yeah.
The fluvials. So that's a pretty busy year. Which one of these places do you really feel like you call home the most?
My mom would be offended if I didn't say my home is in Connecticut, a small town, Goshen, Connecticut. But I think it's got to be Alaska. I've been there for 7 years. The guide staff I work with, they're some of my good buddies, and we've just become really close over the years. So it's definitely got to be Tick Chick in Bristol Bay.
So what is it about Bristol Bay that keeps you going back? I get up every morning and I go to work in a beaver and a float plane, and I get out and I get to sight fish giant rainbows. I mean, so it's pretty sweet.
to get up there and really do that. Yeah.
Beaver being an airplane, right?
That?
Beaver being an airplane?
Yeah, the Haviland Beaver, that's right.
Kirk got a little excited when we heard you woke up every morning and got into a beaver. He was a little excited there.
Yeah.
Little morning delight.
Hey, let's try and keep this serious. So, have you heard about the mining operation up there where they're going to start trying to extract pebbles out of the headwater region?
Yeah, I saw that. Hank Patterson did that whole blog about how they're harvesting pebbles out of there. Yeah, I've heard about it. We actually fished the Kweejack River and the Nutragack River. Tick Narrows Lodge, our lodge is right on the Nutragack. Actually, we consider that our home water. Mm-hmm. We fish it all the way from the headwaters all the way to the outlet, and we do the outlet for the king salmon when they come up in the beginning of the season. So we're fishing that whole area right there, and it's definitely a big deal.
Describe for people who've never been there what it's like to look out over that country.
Oh, it's breathtaking. It's I try and describe it to my friends and my parents. And I've been talking to them for about 7 years. It's really tough unless you've been there. You wake up. The lodge is located on a huge lake, giant mountains that are still covered with snow. Jump in the plane, fly over the tundra. A bunch of feeder streams or tributaries. You might see a bear. You might see a moose. You might see both.
Squatch.
Sasquatch.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if does his range go up that high? I don't know.
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, carry on.
Yeah, so then the pilot, he puts the plane down in this little part of the river. You get out and you jump in your jet boat for the day and you go fishing depending on which river you're on. You might go for king salmon. You might go for char or Dolly Varden. You could go for lake trout on the fly, pike, grayling, rainbows.
Do you get in on that mouse hatch that goes on there for the rainbows?
Yeah, the beauty about our operation is our owner, Bud Hodgson, he's been up there for 34 years. And we lease some access water from the Native Corporation out in the Togiak Valley. So it's we get dropped off on these small little tundra ponds. We hike across the tundra, and hiking on the tundra is sort of like walking on mattresses with waders on. It's really challenging. And these little feeder streams, these little tributaries to these lakes, it's the closest thing I could think to a spring creek, which most people might be familiar with. High grass in the back. You got to have low profile. Where you throw your mouse out there, skate it across, and the fish just wake across the water just like a shark. I mean, I've moved fish from 20 feet across the stream to come over and eat a mouse. It's pretty cool.
Good stuff.
So a little bit more of a personal question, given how much you are traveling throughout the year and you're going from fishery, different clients, you're working for somebody or you're working for yourself. How do you decompress? How do you manage the changes between your seasons, and how do you get away to rebuild yourself?
Yeah, it's tough. I think this year for me, I was guiding in Connecticut for the past 4 years. And I was sort of getting stagnant, and I'm 34, sort of getting old in the guide game.
I'm done then.
But to decompress, I don't know. A lot of driving. I think I decompress in my car, or just at the end of the Alaska season. Here's the best way. At the end of the Alaska season, I don't want to be in the woods anymore. The beauty about living on the East Coast, you get into the city, you go have some nice food, hang out with your friends, and just get away from the water. I think if you don't do that, you definitely get burnt out for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I saw a picture of you recently, and I had met Mike Ward from Outpost Boats back in Missoula at the Guide Rendezvous. Were you on your boat, or were you on a boat that he brought out?
No. So Mike came out. Again, West Branch Anglers in New York here where I'm working has an annual event called Hell or High Water, and they bring in a bunch of different reps. So I was actually fishing on the West Branch, and I floated by an adipose boat, and I heard the segment that you guys did with the gal there with the orange boat, Ginger, on a recent podcast. And
so you're a listener.
Definitely a listener for sure. I listen to all of them.
Wow!
Don't quiz me. Don't quiz me.
Shelley Eamer was her name.
I didn't even remember.
Yeah.
Kurt gets a trophy. Carry on.
anyhow, so I floated by the boat, and I'd never seen it before, and just from listening to the show, I yelled out, I said, hey, how do you like the boat? And he pulls down his buff. He said, oh, I'm Mike with them. So anyways, I said, okay, I'll see you down at the boat ramp. We met up at the boat ramp, and it was a local guide's boat. And he said, yeah, I'm borrowing it while my buddy's out of town for the show. And he said, actually, we're bringing in the Orvis boat that, Derek, you might have seen at their rendezvous out in Montana.
Yeah, really, really well done.
So there's an Adipose, like Orvis
boat.
Branded boat?
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. He brought that in for our event here, and actually that boat is sitting at our fly shop right now. Anyway, so the next day, Mike and I went out and went fishing, testing out his boat. He's a super nice guy, one of the best guys I've met in a long time. The boats are great. The thing I like about it the most is if you're looking for a skiff, and not only if you're just looking for a skiff, but if you're looking for a new boat, definitely check them out. The floor plan inside, it's really open as far as not being so cumbersome. You know, I run a Clackcraft 16-foot low profile. In Mike's boats, you can either get the closed boxes underneath your seats, or you can just get a post if you want more room. Again, on my low profile, I'm 6'5", 250. If you get two guys leaning over the side looking at a fish, well, you got to be careful of the water coming over the gunnels. Yeah. In his boats, we had three guys standing on the side, and that wasn't even close to being an issue.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm actually thinking about starting up a competitive line of poorly designed skiffs to go head-to-head with Adipose. They're going to be called fin-clipped. Bad design, maneuver horribly, and just really expensive.
Low fitness, low survivability.
They don't come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finclippedboats.com.
So, Adam, I was reading through blogs and trying to find a little bit more about you and trying to get a little bit of background. And one thing that was called out was your excellent indicator nymphing skills. So,
he's one of those.
Where do you draw the line between fly fishing and gear fishing? Or is it anybody's business?
I don't. Oh, yes, Tim.
I think when I first started out, being young and not knowing a whole lot, I was like, oh, that guy's a spin fisherman. But then I had to sit down and think about it. I started out with my grandfathers and my stepdad, and we started out spin fishing when I was a kid, and I had a blast. I think the guys that think that indicator fishing is bobber fishing, I call them bobbers, they're indicators. But I think people that have that issue also are the same people that think that only in Alaska, that's all we fish is beads, and that's not correct at all. What I usually tell people is I said, hey, have you ever fished a dry dropper rig? And they say, yeah, I fish dry droppers. And I said, well, when the fish eats the nymph, what's your dry fly acting like? Well, it's an indicator, essentially. And so then it makes more sense to people.
I've actually had fish eat the indicator.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I've had fish on the Kwidzak River come up and eat the biggest thingamabobber you would ever imagine.
I can one up that.
Them all the time.
I fish center pins quite a bit, and I run like the big 3/4 ounce Bomac floats, like the big spin fishing floats that are 4 inches long or bigger, and have quite girth to them. I had a steelhead completely engulf one of those last fall. Just ate the whole thing.
So it's not the size of your bobber; it's how it floats, huh?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it was pretty crazy.
So when you're listed on a couple different places as the head guide, does that require you to teach the other guides that are on your staff? And what is that like going from managing the people on your boat to managing a team of people that are on the water that you don't really have any direct control over?
Yeah, for the past 4 years, I served as head guide at Houstonic Rivers Outfitters in Connecticut, which I stepped away from this year to sort of challenge myself on new water, and they haven't updated their site yet. They're a little behind the times. It's a glorified title, I think, in a lot of ways. It's more of making sure guys are managing proper boat etiquette. I think the biggest thing for me and what I learned from our guides at Tick Chick is you can't control the fishing. You could get dialed in on a stream and really know where the fish are, and sure, you might catch a bunch of fish. But then there's days where you just want to knock your head against the wall because I was here yesterday and there was a ton of fish, and why aren't the fish here today? But what you can control is what happens in your boat. You can control your professionalism. You can control how clean your boat is. You can control how appropriate you look or how well manicured your gear is. I think it's challenging to be a head guide because there's a lot of politics. Again, you have to draw the line between having a work environment, but then also having your friends too. But I was really lucky as the head guide there because a lot of the guys that I fished with, I grew up with, and it was really fun to work with that crew down there.
When you're fishing with your friends, and I do it quite a bit. I mean, I take several trips a year that I schedule myself off just as, like you said, that decompression time. And how many days in the water do you think is the point where fishing with friends kind of goes not fresh anymore? You've been in that situation before?
That's a tough question. I don't. My buddies and I always set up. We block off Memorial Day weekend every year, and we go down to my buddy Adam's cabin in Pennsylvania. And it's these guys are good enough that they could guide, but they have real lives. And that, I don't know if there's an actual answer that I can give you to say, okay, that's too much time to fish with your buddies. I guess it comes down to how much can you work without getting stressed out and still showing the people that are paying you lots of money a great time and still being fresh and showing them the experiences they deserve. And that's different for everybody.
Yeah. Now, also, are you an Orvis endorsed guide as well?
I'm not. I work for 2 Orvis endorsed lodges. I work for Tick Narrows Lodge in Bristol Bay, which is an Orvis endorsed lodge, as well as West Branch Anglers is.
Gotcha.
I do some field testing for Orvis, though.
Right. Yeah, that we know each other from that as well.
We can write you a certification.
You can be Open Fly endorsed.
All right, cool. I'm down with that.
Open Fly endorsed guide program.
Huh. We'll talk about that after the show.
Awesome. Well, I can look on websites, I can look on blogs, and I can look on Facebook, and I can get an idea of kind of what you're doing, but I don't really get a sense of who you are until I kind of talk to you in person. So, thanks for sharing, about what your season's like, what a day with you on the water is like. So how can people find you right now? And then, how far out should they start booking for you and asking for you at your other places during the year?
Yeah, right now, if you get online, if you're on the East Coast, you can look for me at West Branch Anglers and Resorts. I'm on their guide page there. My blog has fallen behind just because I'm not super computer savvy and don't have a lot of time to do it. It's Dead Drift Anglers at blogspot.com. Or you could email me at deaddriftanglers@gmail.com.
Are you a Grateful Dead fan?
No, I like the Dead, but I got to be honest, I am not a Donna fan. So if Donna's in any of the songs, I change the station right away.
Oh, see, I'm not a Bruce fan. If Bruce comes on, I'm done.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
We might have to go all the way back like late '60s to get just Pigpen on the line. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Let me ask a real quick question of you, Adam, before we pull the plug on you. All the varied waters that you fish, what's your favorite species to pursue with a fly?
Trout. I'm a trout guy, but die hard, and it's got to be rainbow trout, I guess. That's really where I've made my niche, especially in Bristol Bay, and so yeah, trout is my game.
Right on. We would get along just fine.
Does that include the lake run rainbow trout?
Yeah, that includes the lake run rainbow trout.
All right.
We trained you well.
Right on. Well, Adam, thank you very, very much for sharing your time with us today. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time, and hopefully I can run into you on the water.
Hey, you guys are all, anytime you're on the East Coast, look me up.
Sweet.
We'll meet you in the parking lot.
I'm only ever over there when it's frozen over, like end of January.
We just got to gas up the jet. We can get an Upper New York State, an East Coast Reds trip, a Florida tarpon trip.
Yeah,
I think we need an open fly beaver is what we really need.
Ooh, we do need an open fly beaver. Can you help us out with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Your fly is down.
All right, thanks, Adam.
Yeah, take it easy, Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good fishing.
Yep. Go slay some hogs.
Tight lines.
Hey, that was a show.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I think we're back in the swing of things.
Are we?
What was it, 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks?
No, it was almost a month.
Was it almost a month?
Yeah, it was like 3.5.
Yeah, we lost our edge.
We'll get there. We got to start getting our funny bones healed.
I feel like we're back.
It's nice to hear that we have guides who listen to the show too. Because
did you plan that, or did you just now find out he was a fan?
I did not.
If you're a guide that actually listens to the show, contact us and we'll have you on.
They'll do a segment about how we've influenced your the way you approach your fisheries,
and we can talk about the Open Fly endorsed guide program.
Yeah,
and we need an Idaho guide for an upcoming show. So if you are in the state of Idaho, please send us a message via the website, and we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, it makes us feel better about ourselves if you approach us asking for airtime rather than us approaching you.
And if you have a beaver and want to make it the Open Fly beaver, contact Kirk.
Yeah.
How about that?
Would you know what to do with a beaver if you got your hands on one, Kurt?
I don't have my pilot's license, no.
Oh. So you're not a bush pilot?
Not yet, but I'll tell you what. If I could get my hands on a really nice beaver, I'd become a bush pilot. I would undergo the training.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
When there's a beaver involved. De Havilland. Jeez.
So, anything else you guys want to add to this?
Let's go do some indicator nymphing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Did you guys...
We should talk about last week on a guide's day off.
Tell us a little about the guide's day off.
Derek actually...
I had a guide's day off with Derek as well. But
yeah, Derek took up the rear seat in the back of my boat and did a little NASCAR fishing.
Yeah, it's this new thing that we have. This is this thing where it's all, the philosophy is keep it simple. And I was holding this Tenkara rod, and it was orange, and there was a naked woman, like the trucker mud flap woman is the logo of this company that makes this Tenkara rod, Fast Eddie. Is that what it was called?
Fast Eddie.
And it came to me that this was like the cross between NASCAR and cane pole fishing, and so the term NASCAR just came right up. And Kirk started singing this Maybelline song. I don't know what that was.
Isn't it Maybelline?
I'm not that old.
What's Maybelline have to do with NASCAR?
Mascara.
Mascara.
See, I understand that now.
Yeah, now you're hip to it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that I can see where that would be a methodology that is appropriate in some locations, but on big rivers where it's not, it's just not.
No.
I thought the imaging behind the whole Fast Eddie thing was wrong. I mean, you're honoring the centuries-old tradition of Japanese angling Tenkara, and then you have this bright red, audaciously named stick. It just seems wrong. It's like
strike them from the potential sponsors list.
Speed Zen.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to start this new thing called NASCAR, where it's just left turns only. You cast only with your left hand.
Oh, did you figure out how to switch hands? That was a topic on the last show.
He struggled.
Yeah, I struggled at first because I was like, well, I don't know which hand to retrieve. But then there is no retrieve. It's just there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know for sure, but I think Tenkara actually means empty or completely missing reel.
That's your limited Japanese piece
of...
Well,
he knows karate. I mean, he's an instructor.
No, he knows Taekwondo.
Well, as a student of martial arts, you read about other styles, and karate actually literally means empty hand. So Tenkara, ten must mean real, kara is empty, so empty reel or completely missing.
Why don't you stop hitting that thing?
I think it's like I think it's like the old native word for bad hunter is vegetarian.
Yeah.
I mean...
You know what the term for good, or actually no, I think this is more based in Germanic languages. We know what the term for good hunter is?
Guten Hunter?
Nimrod.
Huh.
Nimrod.
That's where that term came from. It actually meant hunter.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe I need my next rod series with Alan is called the Nimrod.
Maybe it derives from the old black powder days and you still in modern black powder you have your ramrod.
Why don't you show the motion? Kirk's doing a ramrod.
I think you're bragging a little bit there, bud.
You ram the wad down into the
in your de Havilland beaver.
Oh boy. Yeah.
That's why we don't have cameras in here.
Yeah.
You think we don't have cameras in here.
That's pretty much what anytime the Tenkara thing comes up when I'm traveling across the country and guys talking about getting into it, and they asked if I've done it, I'm like, I got nowhere to do it. My rivers are hundreds of feet across. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with a stick that can only throw 20 feet.
I could see it being real effective when you need a little backpack rod and you're going to go to an alpine lake or something like that.
Or just the small streams. I mean, you can't even get a long drift with it. And I like me a long drift.
I would probably troll the next time I go out with my NASCAR. In fact, that's probably what I'll do.
You're going to put a big heavy streamer on it and just troll it?
I'm thinking like a size 2 carry special with an intermediate line.
Put some lead on there?
Just intermediate line. I want it to get down, because it's a size 2, it's going to get down deeper anyways, but I'm thinking I'll just paddle left the entire time and just go troll this big brown trout lake that I know of.
All right.
There you go.
NASCAR.
Can you do it in a bass boat? Motors allowed?
No. We have to respect the tradition, the historical tradition. Yeah. But I will have a bunch of stickers.
You're going to get NASCAR stickers made?
Well, all over the place. I mean, you're going to know that I'm NASCAR fishing when I'm out there. I'll be turning left all the time. And that's what I'll be doing.
You will be Fast Eddie.
Don't low hole me. I'm turning left all the time.
Okay. Should we let our listeners go? Should we?
Please.
Yeah, I guess that pretty much wraps that up. Anybody else? You want to?
No. Just pull the plug.
All right, pull the plug.
Pull it.
Plug. Today's show is brought to you by Wetlander Boat Coatings, Stream Tech Boats, Allen Fly Fishing, Emerging Rivers Guide Service, all of the Willy Bugger. Find us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Instagram, and the openflypodcast.com. Send feedback to the openflypodcast at gmail.com.
You repeat that?
No.
And we mean that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye-bye.